But once you're clear on the criteria for a dream client, you have to be ruthless in saying no to anything less. You hear me use this phrase, hell yes or hell no. That for me is like, if you're not a hell yes client, then I have to call you a hell no. If I have a distinction I use that's even narrower, 9.9 versus 10. Am I willing to say no to someone who's a 9.9? I mean, it's been exponential since then.
How did that happen for the person who's watching, who's like, yeah, $77,000 in 3 months doesn't seem too bad? How'd you do that?
Well, look, here on my desk sits the book. This is the proof copy, the first copy I ever got of this. And how did I do it? The way we talk about it here, from this place of service. Who can I serve? How can I give so much value to somebody that it's a no-brainer? Of course they're going to want to spend time working with me. It's thinking about, well, how do I get a client? Phoning up a friend to have a conversation. So instead of trying to enroll people and this kind of getting energy, it's just like, it's a story I put in a book. I remember just one day, like, what am I going to do? This happened in my first few months working with Steve. I'm trying to fill a program and I need this one more person. No idea who to even speak to. And I phone up a friend. We have this great conversation. At the end, he says, what are you up to? I tell him what I'm up to. I've got this program for these powerful women. And he laughs and says, my mum's a woman like that. I laugh too. And a day later, he emails me and says, can I tell my mum about what you're up to? I said, sure. Speak to her a week later, speak to her again a few days after that. She signed up to the program. It's like, so just coming from this place of being me, taking all the stories off the table about what I have to do and showing up, serving, having interesting conversations. My business plan since the day I became a coach has been one line: meet fun and interesting people.
Yeah, well, you're in the wrong place. I'm sorry you somehow got thrown into this conversation. I'll see if I could spice it up a little bit.
What can you do? You have to make do with what you got.
Yeah. Well, what I get when I read your stuff and when I learn from you is you work with exceptional people, and you work with people who are committed to achieving at a level that most people aren't. And for the people who are watching this interview, I have a feeling that they'd love to work with these types of people. I'm wondering, in your case and in your story, was there a point where you were working with people who weren't like this, where you were just kind of taking clients on as you could get them, and maybe some people were hell yes, but some weren't? And then how did you, or how can the person watching transition from that place to, I'm going to only work with these, exceptional people?
Well, you have to get clear on who you want to work with. I make choices about who I want to work with. Each coach has to decide who their dream clients are. But once you're clear on the criteria for a dream client, you have to be ruthless in saying no to anything less. You hear me use this phrase, hell yes or hell no. That for me is like, if you're not a hell yes client, then I have to call you a hell no. If I have a distinction I use that's even narrower, 9.9 versus 10. Am I willing to say no to someone who's a 9.9? Because if I am, I create space for the 10s. And if I'm not, I'll never get the 10s. And those are people who are 10 for me. I was at a party once with Monique, and afterwards she said to me, as my wife, she said, that woman you were speaking to, she sounds like a dream client. Why didn't you tell her about what you're up to? And I said, oh, you know what? She wasn't fun. Fun is one of my criteria in a client. And so I didn't even, I could have done with a client at that point, but I wasn't going to say yes to someone or even start a conversation if they didn't feel fun to me. And these are my criteria. And I like working with high performers. I'm a high performer. I always have been. It's just how I operate. So I see things in the world of high performers that they don't see for themselves. Almost every high performer, I was just talking to one just now, every high performer I speak to has this guilty little secret running in the back of their mind. They feel they're lazy. It's like all their friends are acknowledging them for creating this amazing success in their world. And deep down on the inside, it's like, if only you knew how little I'm doing. Like, I'm not really even working hard for this. And I get that. I know those people. And they when they hear me have these distinctions about their world, they want to have a deeper conversation. But that's because I worked for a significant amount of time, I still do, with very, very powerful women. Turns out I'm not a woman. Sometimes not even powerful. But as I immersed myself in that world of working with extraordinary women, I began to see things about their world that I was able to articulate back to them. but so some of this comes through choice. I didn't choose to start working with powerful women. If I had back in 2006, whatever, they would have laughed at me. I was coaching men around dating because I figured I messed up enough relationships, Jacob, that I could tell men how not to do it. But women began to hear what I was doing, and they'd ask, and it seemed to roll from there. So there's no magic formula for finding out who your dream clients are. But once you start speaking it into the world, you have to be ruthless in saying no to anything less.
Can you remember a pretty clear point in your career where you made that shift of just being willing to work with whoever to actually saying, you know what, I got this new idea. I only want to work with hell yeah people. I'd love to go back to that point because I think that's so many of the people watching this right now.
Yeah. So this is where it gets interesting for me. 2 or 3 years ago, I began to use this phrase that worked for me. I said, I coach kings. That just felt like a good phrase to really, that kind of captures who I work with. It included powerful women as well as powerful men. It's just, I coach kings and queens, which is too wordy. It's just, I coach kings. That was it. That captured it for me. This is who I work with. But I believe in a created world. So I was sitting down with a woman once. We were talking about one of my Confident Woman salons. We had this great coaching conversation. And at the end of the conversation, I say to her, look, I don't think this is right for you. It's just, the program's not right for you. I turned her away. And she was sad, she was disappointed, but we agreed to part. It was fine. She called me a day later and said, look, if you're still around, can we have another conversation? And it was in New York. I said, look, I've got a bit more time. Let's speak. And we met up and she said, look, I didn't share all of myself with you. I told you the places where I'm struggling, the places where I'm feeling held back, the problems, the challenges in my life, because I thought that's what I do with a coach, but that's not all of me. And she then went on to describe what an amazing woman she was, all the incredible things she'd done in her life. And now I lit up. I was like, oh, wow, I love this. Yeah, you're in. So I call it creating clients for a reason. In my book, I call it the glimpse of genius. Your job is to look for the genius in the person in front of you and draw it out of them. So you can create a king, even if you don't see one sitting in front of you, because he's in there. Your job is to draw him out.
So fascinating. I got an email like that recently also where I was doing some enrollment and...
Hey, thanks for listening. Before you go, I've got over a decade's worth of tools and ideas to help you drastically increase your income and your impact as a coach over at richlitvin.com. And hit the subscribe button, because when you do, you'll automatically get notified every time I release a new podcast episode. See you next time.